So I am now taking the ferry across the Bay of Naples to the small volcanic island of Ischia, 15 miles from the mainland. Nowadays, Ischia is a popular day trip for tourists who come not just to enjoy the island's beaches, but to visit a world-famous garden. But as recently as 50 years ago, the island was remote, with no mains electricity or water. And it was 60 years ago that a young woman in her 20s came here and began to create a remarkable garden. Hello? Immediately you enter the garden, you're struck by the lushness of the planting, which is flagrantly tropical. Which is something of a culture shock on this bone-dry Mediterranean island. La Mortella is the life's work of the Argentinian Susanna Walton, who married the enormously successful English composer Sir William Walton when she was just 22. Looking to escape the English winter, they rented a house on Ischia in 1949, neither of them ever having been there before, and fell in love with the island, deciding that it was the ideal place for Sir William to compose in peace. They bought the land for the garden in 1956. It was an old quarry with no water supply. But Susanna, an instinctive plantswoman, was undaunted and started planting straight away with exuberant enthusiasm. Following her instincts, she selected exotic plants from around the world, and against all the odds, the garden quickly flourished. It's interesting that Ischia, with its volcanic rock and its heat and its moisture, is so conducive to things growing fast. So you get this dramatic response, and the show is operatic. There's drama, there's colour, there's bigness, there's flamboyance. And you can't really have that in the north. It's to do with the south, and you needed someone from Argentina with Latin in her soul to make that come alive. From the first, it was a major undertaking. Russell Page, the preeminent English garden designer of the day, created the layout of the garden, and the landscape was on a heroic scale. Terraces were cut into the volcanic rock. 75 lorry loads of topsoil were poured into the ravine, and huge cisterns for irrigation were filled with water shipped in by tanker from the mainland. As the trees grew, they created a benign microclimate that allowed Susanna to create a subtropical garden with plants from all over the world, where bromeliads happily rubbed shoulders with slipper orchids beneath a canopy of tree ferns and palms. La Mortella's head gardener, Alessandra Vinciguerra, came to Ischia in 1997 and worked with Susanna until her death in March 2010.
From the start, the choice of plants was hers, and this is why it is so tropical. She liked bold plants, she liked colors, she liked the plants that came from Argentina, plants that were different from what you would find in gardens at that time in this area.
And when Susanna saw a plant she liked, she had to have it, and would go to extraordinary lengths to bring it back to La Mortella, as the story behind this huge silk floss tree, Corycia speciosa, displays.
That was planted by Lady Walton in 1983 from a seed that she took in Buenos Aires. She went there for a concert, and she noticed there were some corycias growing there. So anyhow, she climbed on top of her taxi and picked one of the fruits. And from that fruit, from that tree, came that plant.
This story seems to have been entirely typical of her way of living and gardening. And that energy and vivacity runs like electricity through the garden. It is a performance, a garden wearing a stylish hat and a brilliant smile whilst talking 19 to the dozen.
It is a very passionate garden. It's full of life compared to the typical formal, historical Italian garden that people sometimes don't understand. This one is understood or is loved by everybody.
Above the subtropical tree line, on the exposed old quarry walls, the garden transcends its recent history and becomes rooted deep in place.
Although this garden is packed with plants, a lot of them unusual, I have to say none are nicer than the Mediterranean natives, like this rosemary, prostrate, dripping down the hillside. It's beautiful. And the cistus. And the myrtle, and of course like Mortella, is taken from the name myrtle. These are native plants, as common as anything you'll find in the whole Mediterranean. But they absolutely look right at home. This is where they live, so they're comfy.
The garden is an expression of one remarkable woman's flamboyance and deep passion for plants. It sings with energy and colour. But the garden began and ends as a testament to the love of Susanna for her husband William, who died in 1983. High up above the quarry, she created a monument to him, overlooking his favourite view.
Here is a rock, which is the memorial to William Walton. His ashes are underneath here. But I think the real memorial is the garden itself. It's a memorial to both of them, William and Susanna. And although Russell Page is always credited with designing the garden, which he obviously did, that was his job. But the thing that brought it to life was Susanna's planting. And I read that she quoted the famous remark that you will consult the genius of the place to inspire you. Genius of the place is the love. And if you like, the whole garden is a monument to them and their love for each other.